It is Politics Friday time, the first Politics Friday for 2026 here at Chris Lynch Media. I'm joined by Labour's Reuben Davidson and National's Hamish Campbell. Thank you for joining me. Happy New Year, considering it's a whole month's gone by?
Your show, Chris. You can say whatever you want.
Yes, within
I
reason.
think it's Happy New Year. It's the first time we've had politics, the politics panel. So, yep, Happy New Year.
Isn't it exciting? I'm excited.
Great to see
We've got so much to discuss this morning, gentlemen. Reuben, let me start with you first of all. This is probably more your area than Hamish's, although it tends to spread too. That smell is going towards Riccarton by all accounts. This ongoing stench with the treatment ponds. Reuben, this really shouldn't be happening so many years on from that fire, should it? And it seems like the council's being reactive, not proactive.
It's totally unacceptable. It's a real health risk for people who live in that area to be putting up with that smell. You hear stories about people who can't have their windows open, can't have their kids playing in their backyard. This is not a new issue. That fire was in 2021, that's 5 years ago, and now residents are being told that they may have to wait a further 3 years. And so all of a sudden you're saying this is a decade during which you have to put up with really foul stenches in your section, in your home, in your community. I think it's totally unacceptable.
Hamish, shouldn't this be deemed a health hazard or a pollution hazard? Because at the moment, it's not. It's just a smell.
Yeah, look, I think sewage treatment is actually a very complicated process, and I think a lot of it has actually stemmed from the really heavy rains that we've received over the last month or so, and of course that's disrupted the fine balance of the aerobic and anaerobic bacteria in the ponds, and of course there's been the levels of oxygen have actually fallen in the ponds, which have led to these bacteria that do create some of these odours becoming more prominent. Now, of course, they're always there and present, and it's always a bit of a balance. And I think the council is now looking at all the ways possible to make sure that they can actually restore that balance. And I think with the heavy rains, even some of the sludge has come to the surface. So there's probably multiple aspects to it, and of course, with the rains that we've had, and I think around the country we've seen other issues, that this is really an issue that's really coming in. And of course, it is, as I say, a very fine balance. And I think they're even looking at getting a jet boat in there to actually kind of really stir it up and get some oxygen into there to encourage the good bacteria to help with the breakdown of the sewage or the sludge.
Gee, a jet boat, that sounds like a trip of a lifetime. Not sure I'll be keen for that one. But I mean, I was thinking about this morning, though.
Well at the end of it.
Gee, imagine that. Yuck. But I mean, come on, guys. It's kind of like, as Reuben was saying, it was so many years ago now. And I was thinking about this, thinking those two things that look like the circuses, that they were burnt to the ground. We know that now. I cannot believe that system has not been rebuilt. It is like anything the council does, it takes forever. And to hear that residents may be waiting another 3 years, I bet your bottom dollar they'll be waiting a lot longer than that. Reuben, this is just unacceptable. What the hell is going on? It should be fixed by now.
Yeah, it is really frustrating, and one of the things that, as the smell's gotten worse recently and spread to areas where it hasn't previously been an issue, it's highlighted how much people in that immediate area around, and that immediate community around the wastewater treatment plant have been putting up with, and it is totally unacceptable. I mean, I appreciate Hamish's points about what's going on, in those oxidation ponds, but people don't care about necessarily the science behind what's going on in those oxidation ponds, and they don't want number 8 wire jet boat solutions. They want the smell gone from their community, from their school, from their home, so they can hang their washing out, so that their kids can play in the backyard, so that they don't have to worry about whether they can actually breathe outside their home or not. It's totally unacceptable for residents who are affected by the stink coming from that place.
Perhaps we could put the wastewater treatment plant in that spare section on Glandovey Road, on the corner of Glandovey and Memorial Avenue. There's a big section there, and maybe if we put one of the big pumping stations there, that would help the flow better, Hamish.
Oh, look, and I take Ruben's point that people are impacted by this. One of the problems we have here in New Zealand is it takes forever to do anything because we've tied ourselves up with bureaucracy. And that's why we're really focused on actually making sure we can reform the Resource Management Act, because councils or any local authority have to follow the rules. And we have given them so many rules to actually trying to be able to do stuff, try to be able to build stuff, has almost become impossible here in New Zealand. And so I totally take the point that we don't want this to drag on any longer than it necessarily has to be. But we actually need to make sure we have a framework here in New Zealand that actually councils, when they're faced with issues like this, can actually respond quickly and actually can build quicker.
Why don't we put this thing? Why don't we put this thing on the fast track building projects thing?
Well, there's still lots of problems with fast track, as you would have seen.
That's
Lots
true.
Of projects in fast track are having to go back through the system, and what Hamish hasn't talked about with the new legislation is that communities will have little to no say, and environmental considerations will have little to no impact on applications. So in fact,
we can sit here and debate about projects while people in Ruben's electorate suffer from smells, or we can get stuff built. That's the choice.
I want to move on to this call from councillors to have a freeze of pay for some of the council-owned entities. Ruben, to you first on this one. Look, it's all well intended. It sounds like a nice to have, but I couldn't help but thinking this is not going to help you or me when it comes to our rates at the end of the day. This is just political posturing, isn't it? It's a nice thing to say that these guys are on $800,000 a year. They pay freeze this and that. I mean, as long as I've been in broadcasting in Christchurch, we have these conversations. Nothing changes. It's not helping you or me.
Yeah, so the thing that has changed here is that central government has said that there's going to be a rates cap. So now what we're faced with is increasing costs if these wages continue to rise for CEOs of council-owned companies, and then a rates cap that's enforced from central government, which means that if you're expected to be doing the same or more with less rates, revenue, then what happens? We sell assets, we shut libraries, we close down swimming pools so that we can pay CEOs more to run the council-owned companies.
Now that's one way to look at it, but the CEO's pay does come from those companies if they make money, though, doesn't it? Hamish, to you on that?
Ruben clearly does not understand how these companies operate. The council does not pay the CEO's salary of these organisations. They are actually separate companies that operate. Now, what we've seen rates increase 2.5 times the rate of inflation over the last wee while. So we are introducing a rates cap because we want to make sure councils are focused on making sure that they're financially prudent. Now, the thing is, these companies are something separate. Of course, these companies actually return about $70 million, maybe a little bit more, to the ratepayers actually each and every year in the profits that they actually make from these companies. Now, that is a debate for the companies whether they need to put a pay freeze on for the CEOs. But what we actually need to do is recruit CEOs for these companies that actually are going to maximise the returns for the Christchurch City Council. And I think that is what they're trying to do. And that whether they're getting paid too much, too little, that is actually up for the boards to actually decide for those companies.
Gee, some of them are on a lot of money, though, aren't they? You think, what the hell do they
They're
have?
certainly on a lot more.
I think I'm in the wrong line of business.
They're certainly on a lot more than the people who work in those companies in the frontline roles. And that's the other thing we've got to think about here is that some of these companies are still, not paying the living wage to their employees. And yet at the other end, you've got CEOs taking home almost $1 million. You do
and getting 20% pay increases over 4 years. I couldn't believe it.
Massive pay increases. And to Hamish's point, these council-owned companies do give their profit back to council, which has a direct effect on what's in the pot for council to spend, and therefore how much people need to be paying in rates, because whatever comes in from those companies offsets what needs to be gathered in rates. So it does have a direct impact. And when central government, the government that Hamish is part of, says that they're going to cap the rates in Christchurch or any city, that has a direct impact on what council can fund, be it libraries, be it swimming pools, or be it selling assets.
Having said that, Ruben, the general public sentiment on rate caps is largely positive, though. Do you accept that when we hear the words rate caps, people go, good. They don't go, damn, the library's going to close.
Yeah, but what the missing part there is that if you tell someone that they're going to need to pay less for something, they're generally happy until they realise that within that they're going to be paying separately for things like water, or they're not going to have
So
the
that's
basic
just fear
resources
mongering.
and supports that they rely on, like swimming pools, like libraries that are open 7 days or at all in their community.
Just funny. I think what this will do,
Ruben
what this conversation, I think what this
is great at
conversation,
fear mongering.
I think what
But the
this
thing is, it's
conversation
about
will
actually
do.
making sure the council is actually spending money on what we need to. We've had millions of dollars spent on an abandoned cycleway up Harewood Road. We have a cycleway in Park Terrace that is actually pointless. There is off-road cycling paths right there. So why did the council spend millions of dollars of doing that? There's a lot of wasteful spending that's gone on. I appreciate the Labor loves wasteful spending, but we are actually about getting things targeted and actually making sure we get efficiency in the system.
Just funny. I think what this conversation will bring out, though, is the fact that one of the highest numbers in the council in terms of expenses is pay. And the amount of overlaying and duplication that I've been seeing in the council is incredible. I mean, they've just appointed a marketing and identity manager who's responsible for creating the identity of the city. And Christchurch NZ's just done a wonderful job already creating that. And you think to yourself, what is this guy going to be doing on 140k a year? I mean, it's that kind of wasteful spending that we don't need. But I digress. I want to move on to Winston Peters having another Twitter rant last night on the Indian immigration issues. Gentlemen, Hamish, let me start with you on this. This is your government, really. Do you agree with Winston Peters that New Zealand has offered India a more generous migration setting in the FTA than any other previous free trade agreement? And is this good or bad for New Zealand?
And look, Winston Peters can have whatever opinion he really likes. But I actually think that this is a really good deal for New Zealand. And I would actually challenge some of the assertions that he's made. Yes, there is allocations there for skilled migrants to come to New Zealand, but they're actually coming out of our existing cap. And I think there's about 16,000 highly skilled people visas that can be applied to. That means that people can come in for 3 years, work for 3 years, and then they have to go back to India. But there's a whole range of things behind this free trade agreement, which is actually going to be really good for New Zealand. It's going to boost our economy. It means that I think up to 95% of our exports are going to be tariff-free into India. There's 1.4 billion people in India, and so I think this is a really good thing. And there's clauses in there around dairy that if India negotiates another free trade agreement with another country with a better than what we have, that we can actually then renegotiate. And currently we have some of the most favorable conditions out of any free trade agreement with India. Now, India is a fascinating country. My wife and I actually rode motorbikes through India pre-kids. Absolutely fascinating. It is a huge market. It's that we can actually, our exporters can really make some money. And
Look, I don't disagree with all of this and the sentiments and the economy and all the stuff. But what I'm saying from the average person, average New Zealander, they have concerns. They have genuine concerns, thinking this seems more like an immigration policy than a free trade agreement. All they hear is more Indian students coming to New Zealand, going into low-paid jobs, which could effectively make the economy slower, which means pay will be not as good for New Zealanders. Let's be honest, a lot of Indians work incredibly hard and do many jobs that New Zealanders don't, and people have real fears this is just going to continue that kind of sentiment in New Zealand. So no matter which way you sell it, people have genuine concerns, and for better or worse, Winston Peters has picked up on this one, and he's saying, 5,000 Indian citizens into New Zealand at any one time. The agreement means they can eventually bring their spouses or dependent children. The population then could go to about 20,000 people on average. Do you understand that sentiment, though? No matter how much you sell this, what I'm seeing on social media, people have concerns.
Yeah, but as I say, we actually have an allocation of highly skilled visas already, and this is just going to be a subsection of what we've already allocated. We actually need high skills to come into New Zealand. We need the doctors, we need the IT professionals to actually increase the productivity of our economy. Yes, we don't want mass migration, but we want to make sure that we can have the skilled migrants coming to New Zealand. And under the agreement, they can come for 3 years, and after 3 years, they then need to go back to India. So I think think Winston Peters is trying to kind of rile people up a little bit to get a response. But actually, if you look at actually what's actually included, you'll find that actually maybe it's not all what he's claiming to be. Bearing in mind, he wasn't in favour for the free trade agreement with China back in 2008, and that has been a huge boon for our economy, as that's one of our largest export markets now, courtesy of that agreement.
Okay, Ruben, to you on this.
Yeah, look, 2 points. The first is, once again, we see the conflict that exists within this coalition government, where you've got the Prime Minister saying one thing, Minister of Foreign Affairs saying another thing, and embarrassingly, they're not even doing this in the cabinet room in privacy. Most of it's happening on Twitter. It just shows how messy this government is. And secondly, what it highlights is, when you're as desperate as Christopher Luxon is to achieve anything, you opt for the buy now option, like a trade media deal. So he didn't take the time to negotiate absolutely the best deal. He was so desperate to get it done, he just went for the buy now. And as a result, it's not as good as the deal that Hamish has spoken about, the China Free Trade Agreement that Labour negotiated, that has stood the test of time, much like the UK trade agreement. So when you negotiate these things, and Labour's got a great track record of negotiating trade deals for New Zealand, you do need to take the time to get them done properly. When you rush them, when you just go for the buy now option, that's
so
when
what's
there's a whole
okay.
lot of risk.
Just briefly though, what is the so-called buy now option that you speak of, and what would make this FTA better from Labour's point of view? Just quickly, Ruben.
Yeah, so there's a number of issues that we're still seeking answers on. Once we've had those answers, we'll be able to make our position on it really clear.
What are the problems that you see right now?
No, that is the answer. But look,
to come to that point, Hamish,
that India has actually ever signed, and we have clauses in there that can be renegotiated if any country gets a better deal. So the thing is, I think we have to be very careful with what's being said. India is one of the fastest growing economies in the world, and the previous government ignored them. And so we've actually gone out there and actually got it done. And I think you'll find that it is actually a very good deal, which is actually going to mean that 95% of our exports are going to enter into India without a tariff.
I think the approach Hamish is taking is just the trust.
Oh, Ruben's gone. Are you there, Ruben?
Still.
Oh, there we go. We just lost you for a second, Ruben, but you're back.
We're back.
You're back. You went into a freeze frame and you said trust us, but I think I got the tone of what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Just briefly.
So all I was saying is that Hamish's approach at this stage, without them answering the questions that have been asked about the free trade agreement, is just trust us. We know what we're doing.
Fair enough. Just briefly, only got a minute left. Judith Collins on the way out. Her legacy. Hamish, what is her legacy?
I think Judith is probably one of the most well-known politicians here in New Zealand. Of course, she has been around for 24 years, I think 12 in government, 12 in opposition. Look, I think she has worked incredibly hard for the New Zealand people. I think she's very principled, but also very pragmatic when it kind of comes to things. Often people refer to her as Crusher Collins, because, of course, when she was police minister around the crushing of boy racer cars. I don't think she actually ever personally refers to herself as Crusher, but I think people both sides of the house will appreciate how much effort she has put in to help New Zealand. She's incredibly intelligent, very quick-witted, and has survived an awful long time in New Zealand politics.
I thought she might be on the way up because looking at her social media pages, particularly Facebook, it just looked like she was having too much fun. I thought, there's somebody who's having too much fun, doesn't really care what happens next. It's like she was going around the world on holiday, taking photos with all sorts of diplomats. Anyway, Ruben, what's her legacy?
Yeah, look, I think one of the things that has really impressed me about Judith is her ability to get across any portfolio very swiftly, not even if she's necessarily would have been the portfolios that she had chosen. So she just always got across them to a huge extent and depth very, very swiftly, and was able to prosecute and advocate for her portfolios when she had them. And the other thing I remember is being heckled in the house by her during one of my first calls, which was intimidating, but also I kind of took as a compliment the fact that even after, as long as she'd been there, she'd still take the time to heckle a first term backbench MP. Ultimately, as her legacy, it's got to be the eyebrows.
Well, quite possibly. The one thing that I think that the public missed about Judith Collins, because she never let the public in that much, is that when I was a producer on the Close-Up show, nearly 20 years ago now, when she was always in the green room, I found her very funny, very charming, very charismatic. But the minute she went into that studio, I don't know who trained her to do this. It was like that school teacher, that principal style of politics she would create on air. It was almost an on-air persona of being quite stern. And it was a remarkable change because I always found her quite funny. And quite jovial and quite down to earth, but you would never get that impression the minute that red light went on in the TV studios, which I always thought was a shame because people probably didn't realise how funny and quick-witted she was. We need to leave it there. It is nice to have you both on the program. I'll let you go into town, Reuben, to that legacy place. Can't remember what it's called. Nice to see you both and have a lovely weekend.
Thanks,
Same
Chris.
to you.
See you, Hamish.
Cheers. Bye.